Welcome back. If you've watched the first video on the update and the situation in the UK and the United States, that's good. And this kind of helps put it into context a bit, because what we're looking at here is the spread of the new variant, the N501 variant that we are concerned about. But coming up on the good news side, we've got the vaccination programme, which I'm expecting to kick in quite big time quite soon. I'm going to tell you more about that. But in the meantime, we've got to carry on with the hands, face, space, ventilate, and we have to recognise if we are getting sick from COVID-19 so we can isolate or advise others to do so. So I'm going to look at some symptoms of what we can really call the COVID syndrome, because this condition can present in so many ways. And we want to be able to recognise all of them so we can get tested and self-isolate till we're tested. So some more symptoms from the COVID symptom tracker app to look at, just to make sure we're familiar with all the symptoms. And again, very important for ourselves, our family, but also for advising friends and those around us. We need this high index of suspicion for SARS coronavirus 2 infection causing COVID-19 disease. Now, just to start us off with this, 2012, this is the N501, the N501Y mutation. So it's the 501st proportion of the 501st amino acid in the protein sequence of the spike protein, and the N form of the amino acid has been converted to the Y form of the amino acid. So in the new mutant, in the new strain, whatever you want to call it, the N is no longer present, and the 501 position is occupied by the Y form amino acid. That's what this means. Now, I think I'm going to give you some what I consider to be good news first of all. So there's hundreds of amino acids forming these polypeptides, these small protein units that form this spike protein. Now, the N501 and the other mutations in the virus are probably only accounting for about 1% of the proteins in the virus. And the antibodies are made to the antigens. The T cells are stimulated in response to the antigen. And of course, the antigen is the totality of the proteome, the proteins that make up the virus. So if these mutations are making up about 1% of the virus now, that means that 99% of the virus is just the same as the old one. And of course, the antibodies are made up to all of the proteins that comprise the antigen, which is the virus. So I am confident, and other scientists have read, well, serious scientists, people that designed the vaccine who actually know this in great detail, are confident that the antibodies and the sensitized cellular immunity that has been generated by the old forms of the SARS coronavirus 2 and indeed the vaccines will still be able to recognise this new form, because 99% of the virus is the same. That's the key thing to grasp. So at the moment, I'm not worried about people who have previously been infected being reinfected. It can happen, but I don't expect them to get sick in the vast majority of cases. And I'm not worried about the vaccine working with the UK 501Y N501Y mutation. Now, for the South Africa mutation, which is a different independent evolutionary origin and a different lineage, but with a very similar mutation pattern, at least the 501 is the same mutation pattern, we know less about that. I'm really hoping that can be isolated, as we believe the mink mutation was isolated in Denmark. So that is quite concerning, and I do believe it's already spread in Africa, but I'm not going to speculate because we simply don't have the data. So here we're talking about the one that arose, what we could call the Kent mutation, the one that arose in Kent. Now, Denmark is the country in the world with the highest per capita genomic sequencing. So the UK does 45% of the world's genomic sequencing altogether, but Denmark does the highest per capita, and Denmark's identified 33 cases. Now, I do not believe it's coincidence that Denmark, having the highest level of genomic surveillance, has got the highest number of cases, that the UK with the highest genomic surveillance has got the highest number of cases. This is just too much of a coincidence. I believe that these countries are identifying it because it's being tested. We're testing more. We believe this mutation maybe arose in Kent. We don't know for sure. It could have come from somewhere else. The epidemiological spread out from Kent does seem to be consistent with the viral mutation originating there. but we don't know for sure. But Denmark, 33 cases of the new variant, what we're calling the 2012 variant, have been in Denmark, so it's spread to there. As far as we know, these are all being isolated. Well, obviously the ones that have been identified are isolating. The question is, how many are there that have not been identified? The question is community spread already taking place in Denmark of the new mutation? Because if it is, this new lineage, we know that it outcompetes the older forms of the virus and becomes the most common form of the virus. It basically becomes the pandemic. It replaces the old forms, and we know it's now more transmissible. So that would be a concern. So we don't really know is the answer. But we do know that 33 cases have been identified. Found between November the 14th and December the 14th in 4 Danish locations. Now, this is 4 locations in Denmark in very different parts of the country. So given that it's been identified in 4 different geographical locations in Denmark, it wouldn't be surprising if it was in the locations between the specific locations where it has been identified. It does indicate to me that it's already spreading in Denmark, and we know that in the past month or two there's been an absolute spike of cases in Denmark, still going up in fact, dramatic increases in Denmark. Could this be part of the driver of that? Insufficient data to tell, but it is a risk. Germany picks up a case from the UK at Frankfurt airport, obviously being isolated. So Germany has identified 1 case. Even in Germany, the genomic surveillance, Robert Koch Institute and such people, nothing like as good as in Denmark or in the UK. I'm surprised Germany's not doing more sequencing, but there you go. It's not. So that's the first known case in Germany. 1 confirmed case in Singapore, because we will insist in flying around the world. France, there's 1 confirmed case that's from the UK. But as well as the 1 confirmed case in France, the Louis Pasteur Institute in Paris is examining several other cases, and I'm expecting more cases to be diagnosed today. Japan has had 5 cases, all from the UK, all identified for travellers from the UK. Hopefully the Japanese authorities can arrest that, and we know there's been at least 1 case in Spain with no further information available on that at the moment. So has this spread all round? We don't have the genomic data to answer that yet. I'm hopeful that it hasn't, and I'm hopeful that it can be contained, because it's going to make the containment measures when this new variant becomes the prevalent form, the containment measures that were containing the virus no longer contain it. We need more containment measures to contain this more. It's not a more virulent form. It doesn't seem to be making people sicker, but it is spreading a lot quicker. And also, the other downside of this, and the reason it's concerning, several reasons it's concerning, but herd immunity is probably going to go up from 65 to 70% with the old variety. And we're probably going to need 80% herd immunity to stop community transmission of this new strain of the virus, because it's more transmissible. So that's a concern. No more news to bring you on the South Africa variant, which is even more concerning than this one. Really hopeful it's being contained in South Africa. Really hopeful it's being contained in South Africa. And more travel restrictions are being implemented now, although there have been flights, as we looked at a couple of days ago. The flights were only stopped to the UK literally 2 days ago. I think the last one arrived on the morning of the 23rd or the 24th of December. So unfortunately, there's been plenty of time to spread the new variant around the world. Let's hope it hasn't happened, because there is some indications from the South African authorities that the South African new variant does cause more severe disease in younger people, which would be a bit of a worst case scenario, really. But no more speculation, because we simply don't know. We're keeping a close eye on it, of course. Now, better news, global vaccination progress. Now, the UK is only giving the Pfizer vaccine at the moment. Over 500,000 in England, 56,000 in Scotland, 22,000 in Wales, 16,000 in Northern Ireland. So we made a start. And this data is more than this is the 24th of December data, I think. So well over 600,000. So we've made a good start. Now the problem with the Pfizer vaccine, as far as the United Kingdom is concerned, is we're going to run out in January, and we're not going to get new supplies till March. So good start, but we'll look at what's going to plug that gap in, or we hope it's going to plug that gap in a minute. But if we're relying on the Pfizer vaccine for the UK, we're going to vaccinate till January, and then all throughout the end of January, all throughout February and into the beginning of March, we won't be doing any vaccines at all because we'll run out of the Pfizer supplies. But let's come to the good news on the Oxford vaccine in due time. United States giving out Pfizer and Moderna vaccine as of the 14th of December. Sorry, from the 14th of December up until the 24th of December, I think this data goes to. Well over 1.25 million people have been vaccinated with the first dose. Good number, of course. Well over 1 million people vaccinated, but that represents 0.39% of the population of the United States. You see this Herculean task we have ahead of us. It's a great start, it's fantastic, but it is only a start. We've got a good few months before any significant herd immunity is going to come along. Wonderful that we're protecting individuals. Wonderful that we're protecting healthcare providers who are not going to now spread it to their patients, we believe. We don't know that for sure, but there's evidence to suggest that that is more likely to be the case. Logically, it makes sense. Do we have the trial data to prove that it's going to prevent transmission? No, we don't. But logically, it makes a lot of sense that it will. So, very good stuff, but a long way to go. Now, Canada, data from Canada. Pfizer and Moderna vaccine both being given out from the 24th of December. Now, I've got this little graphic here of the situation in Canada, of how we're going. Now, this was as of the 24th of December. So we see British Columbia just over 5,000. Prairie states, you can see the numbers. Alberta, Saskatchewan. Is that Manitoba? I think that's Manitoba. Ontario, Quebec, and we can see the numbers. So I guess that's Nova Scotia. I guess that's Prince Edward Island. Anyway, you got the numbers. They've made a good start across the southern states of Canada. So that's encouraging. And of course, Canada has approved the Pfizer and the Moderna vaccine. And Canada's got enough supplies of the Pfizer and Moderna vaccine to vaccinate pretty well the whole population. So, and given that they've got good supplies of both of those vaccines, which in the UK we're not getting the Moderna vaccine till March. So there's been no rush to approve it really. I think the regulators are flat out on the Oxford vaccine. So I'm not expecting to hear approval for the Moderna vaccine in the UK for some weeks. But we're not getting it till March anyway, so it doesn't matter for the UK. But great to see it's going out in the United States and Canada. So good start. Two weapons now in the repertoire, which is really good news. Really, really good news. This is the beginning of the end, but it's going to be one heck of an end because we've got December, January, February, March to get through, as we've said so many times. Mexico, population 126 million. Now this kind of illustrates the problem in lower middle income countries. Mexico, I guess, is a middle income to lower income country. Now they've got an additional dose of 125,000 doses of the Pfizer vaccine, and it's come from Belgium. So they are not getting the vaccine that's manufactured in the United States. This has come from Belgium. And it's great to see that Pfizer vaccination is beginning in Mexico. But 125,000 doses for 126 million people, it's wonderful for the individuals concerned, but it's barely even a start. Barely even a start. It's somewhat tokenistic, to be quite honest. But I'm glad it's happening. I'm not mocking it. So first jabs are on the 29th, 26th today, 3 days' time. Total Pfizer order is 7 million, but when they're getting these is by no means clear. It's not clear at all. All healthcare workers they're hoping to vaccinate in Mexico by 2021, the first quarter, so by about March, April. So they must believe they're getting supplies of vaccine from somewhere. Now Mexico has agreed to buy 35 million doses from the Sinovac one, the CanSino Chinese vaccine, and it's currently being tested on 6,000 Mexican volunteers, which of course is excellent. That's good, but it's not yet approved in Mexico. It's important to add, and it's looking like, now we don't know, it's looking like the Sinovac Chinese vaccine has a relatively low efficacy. It's looking like it's a relatively low efficacy, about 50%. Now we don't know that yet because the data is not published. The efficacy data was scheduled to be published for earlier in December, but it has not been published, or as it has, I certainly can't find it. So this trial ongoing in the Mexican situation is good, but from what we know, and this is just from basically leaks from press reports, the efficacy of the Chinese vaccine seems to be 50%. Now, giving out a vaccine that's 50% efficacious is absolutely worth doing, but it is looking lower than the other ones. So, very limited supply of Pfizer vaccines in Mexico at the moment, as an example. Of course, other countries have no Pfizer vaccine at all, or Moderna vaccine at all. This is the problem. Global distribution and people being prepared to pay for it is going to be the problem. But the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine will offer 77 million doses to Mexico. Now that is a difference. So if we believe they're getting 7 million total in Pfizer, but we don't know when, but we do know they're getting 10 times that of Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine. And not only that, the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine is going to be produced in Mexico for distribution to Mexico and Brazil and other areas of South America. Not only that, the Oxford AstraZeneca people, in an act of great humanity, have agreed to do this on a non-profit basis for the duration of the pandemic. That is a very, very moving gesture from the University of Oxford and from the AstraZeneca Foundation. And that 77 million could save many, many lives in Mexico. So great that they've done that. More news on that in a minute. It's good. The news is good. I'm not trying to make you to wait to the end of the video. I'll break now and give you the bottom line on the AstraZeneca Oxford vaccine. I'm expecting it to be approved in the UK. In fact, I'm pretty certain it's going to be approved in the UK on the 28th or the 29th of December. From taking advice from quite a lot of people, that looks like it's the case. And once it's approved in the United Kingdom, I would expect Mexico to approve it really quite quickly. Therefore, I would expect, to take Mexico and Brazil as examples, that the Oxford vaccine will be given to several million people in those countries in January. This is the big hope for these countries. And as well as that, we know that if you're transporting vaccines to Mexico and Brazil, and you've got to maintain a -70 cold chain, whereas the AstraZeneca vaccine is transported at fridge temperatures. There's no contest in terms of logistics. The logistics of the Oxford vaccine is so much easier. It's logistics we've been doing for years and years and years, that we know well. Chile, Costa Rica also began administration of the Pfizer-BioNTech, but again, as far as we know, small amounts. Now, Argentina's interesting. I suspect they'll be changing to the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine when they can, unless the Sputnik vaccine turns out to be brilliant. We're not really sure yet. But the Sputnik 5 has been chosen by Argentina for its initial phase, and it's been flown directly from Moscow. So, interesting. vaccines flying directly from Moscow to Argentina. And I suspect you political people that are listening, your ears are probably pricking up even more than normal at that. As far as this channel is concerned, it's good if the vaccine has efficacy and is safe, because it means that people will start getting vaccinated. Wish we knew more about it. So the Argentinian authorities, though, appear to be happy, so that they've given emergency authorization, which is great news. And the next few days, 300,000 doses are arriving from Moscow. So 300,000 doses arriving from Moscow as of today, I would think, from about now. And the president of Argentina is to receive his vaccination publicly, which is excellent. Always great to see political leaders leading by example. Just one other country maybe look at, but Brazil due to start vaccinating mid-February, pretty late. Now I'm optimistic they could get some Oxford vaccine before that if it's produced in Brazil and Mexico. So I'm hopeful they'll get it before that. President Bolsonaro is not planning to get a jab because he believes he has immunity already. Now, on this channel we haven't agreed with everything President Bolsonaro has said, but given that he's had the infection, I do believe he will be immune. So you could argue it would be a waste of a vaccine to give him one. But there again, the leadership and the gesture of receiving the public vaccine would be the vaccine publicly would be high, as most politicians around the world are doing or planning to do. We're going to see a complete stream of politicians elbowing to get public vaccination first, I'm sure, and that's a good thing. Very good thing. Germany, France, Italy starting their vaccination programs tomorrow, 27th of December. Had it not been for the pressure on the European Medicines Agency, they wouldn't even be meeting till the 29th, but they met on the 21st and now individual member states are starting to authorise it. So Germany, France, Italy, if they're not starting tomorrow, it will be the day after. Literally tomorrow or the day after. So the European vaccine with Pfizer has started. They haven't approved the Moderna. They have not approved the Oxford. Let's hope they are more proactive than they were with the Pfizer vaccine, because they've got 300 million doses of the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine booked, and that is enough to transform Europe. Now, Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine. Medicines and Healthcare Products Regulatory Authority, MHRA, have been fast-track rolling review of the vaccine since November. So, two things to notice. They've been doing this since November, they haven't waited to be particularly asked. They've been working on it all the time. It's fast-tracked. They're flat out on it. They're going through all the normal procedures that they normally go through, but they're doing it as quickly as they can. And it's a rolling review. So the data that we have, three peer-reviewed we've looked at three peer-reviewed publications on this channel about the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine, as well as the press release. But the HMRA are getting data every day, or certainly every couple of days. I believe it's every day. So they are bang up to date. They've got all the data they need to make this decision. And I'm expecting that decision to be positive, and I'm expecting it to be next Monday or Tuesday, 28th or the 29th. So next Monday or Tuesday, I feel excited already about it. I'm hoping to be able to announce a complete game changer. This is going to be absolutely massive. Absolutely huge. Because of the large numbers of doses that are available. And I am expecting it to be approved. Why am I expecting it to be approved? Because I've read all the peer-reviewed papers. And it looks like it's safe, and the efficacy is, we don't know, 62 to 90%. And it seems that no one who had the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine has been hospitalised. So it's stopping people getting very sick. And we also know there's good evidence that it's stopping asymptomatic infection as well. And we're going to be rolling this out by the million. 100 million doses for the UK, 300 million doses for the European Union, can't remember, 200 or 300 million doses for the United States, 300 million doses for poorer countries initially, being produced in Australia, Mexico, being produced all around the world. It's not for profit, this is what's going to do the job. Monday or Tuesday, I believe that will be confirmed positively. Given the data we have, the only way it's not going to be confirmed is if the HMRA has got rolling review data that we don't know about that's bad. So can't pretend not to be nervous about that, but we have to wait. But Monday or Tuesday. Now, in the meantime, we have to be very aware of the symptoms of COVID-19. So I just want to do a bit of an update from the COVID symptom tracker app on this. Now, I've called this the COVID syndrome. Now, a syndrome, this is not, I've just made this up. I don't know if anyone else is using this term. But to me, well, what a syndrome is, not just to me, a syndrome is a group of clinical features. So a sign is something you see, a symptom is something the patient reports. Clinical features combine both of those, and a syndrome is a range of signs and symptoms, clinical features altogether. Like AIDS acquired immunodeficiency syndrome, AIDS, is a syndrome. So the infection can present in the meninges, it can affect the GI tract, it can affect the lungs, it can affect anywhere. It can affect the nervous system. So it can manifest itself in many ways. And COVID-19 is turning out to be a bit like that. So the classic triad we know: persistent cough, fever, loss of the sense of smell. Smell the coffee jar every morning, see if you can smell. Get all your family to smell every morning. Why not? It's a simple test, it's dead easy to do. Now, still one of these symptoms is needed to get an NHS COVID test, showing the NHS is a bit out of date here. Now, 25% of people who have antibodies do not have one of the classic triads. So 75% of people from this data will get one of these features: persistent cough or fever or loss of smell, or a combination of those. Most people will, but not all. A significant chunk, 25%, who've had the infection don't have one of the classic triad. So yes, we expect these, but only in 3/4 of cases. I think that's the key thing to get across. These are not diagnostic at all. Very useful, 75%, but not everyone. Most common two features that people got are headaches and fatigue. So pretty well everyone, 82% of people who get COVID infection get headache, 72% get fatigue. But of course, put your hand up if you've never had headache or fatigue. There's a lot of false positives. So headache or fatigue doesn't mean say you've necessarily got COVID. It can raise your index of suspicion, of course. But it doesn't mean say you've got it, because you're going to get a lot of false positives, because these are very common clinical features. But the majority of people who get COVID have these also as well. So people that get COVID normally have headache and or fatigue. People that get headache and or fatigue do not necessarily have COVID, although they may, is the way to describe it. So just using those features alone, they can give false positives. But these figures for headache and fatigue are true in all age groups, it's turned out. But they're highly non-specific, so they can give false positives, is what that is saying. Now, other symptoms from the COVID symptom tracker app: shortness of breath, muscle pains, diarrhea, that's the English spelling, loose stools, running to the toilet to poo, to pass feces. Anorexia means loss of appetite, you don't feel like eating. Confusion. Confusion typically manifests itself as disorientation. For time, you don't know when it is. For place, you don't know where you are. And for person, you can get people mixed up. In that order, that's more severe confusion. And this is primarily a feature in the elderly. So some elderly people just become confused. That can be the only clinical feature they get, at least initially. So confusion, have a high index of suspicion for COVID in your elderly relatives who become acutely confused. Skin rashes, as we looked at before on this series, 8% of people who get COVID also get skin rashes. Sore throat, hoarse voice, pains in the chest, diarrhea I've already said, abdominal pains, and it's estimated that only 20% of people get completely asymptomatic infection. So many people have minimal symptoms. Many people don't develop symptoms till later on in the illness, but only about 20% of those that are infected have a genuine asymptomatic course of the disease. So 80% of us, when we get this, hopefully most of us won't get this, but if we do get this, because we'll be vaccinated, but 80% will get some clinical features, albeit potentially mild for most cases, some getting sick, some getting critical, and some, of course, tragically, are not going to make it. They're going to die from it. Now, the other thing the COVID Symptom Tracker app did that is very useful, hallmarks of more severe infection. So the confusion indicates more severe infection that can deteriorate. The abdominal pain can be a warning sign, and the shortness of breath is as well. And of course, the shortness of breath can develop onto the form of shortness of breath caused by the acute respiratory distress syndrome with fluid in the lungs. And the other thing they came up with, most people who require breathing support, whether it's additional oxygen, CPAP, that's pressurised oxygen and air going in, or ventilation, most people who require breathing support come to hospital around 13 days after their first symptoms. 13-day delay. So I'm going to post all of those in the description. Very important to have a high index of suspicion for other clinical features which could be COVID-19. If any of these come along, we're suspicious, then self-isolate, isolate contacts, organise the testing as soon as possible. And that way we will curtail the spread more. Okay, I don't think I've got any more pictures to show you at the moment. I think I've got some, but they're on the other computer, obviously. So I think that's us for now. So thank you for watching, of course, as always.